Hey guys, we're going to talk about four-stroke outboards today, and I recently received outboard in payment for some stuff that was owed to me, and unfortunately, this one was stored improperly. So we'll talk about that for a second. What we have here is a Honda BF9 9.9 horsepower four-stroke outboard. Looks to me like a long shaft. These are very expensive motors. The newer version of it, this one ran till about 2004, if I recall. The newer version of it runs about $3,000 brand new, and there's a pretty low hours, as is the case with most outboards, and as is also the case with most of them, probably played with hard and put away wet. This one itself was stored on its side, labeled as the proper side for it to be stored on, for about a year with oil in it. And unfortunately, oil seeped out everywhere. It seeped out down here at the intake. This is where the air filter normally goes, which is also unfortunately missing. The shift rod is broken, and there was oil seeping out here, mostly here though, and even more importantly out down here, which you can see there's still oil there. And I was sort of skeptical and worried, but this is an electric start option motor, and it's just worth too much for me to pass up, and of course the trade up was worth it to me for the risk. So when I brought it home, I checked the crankcase, and of course there was no oil in it, which was to be pretty much expected. And I pulled the plugs out of it, kept the oil cap off, gave it a day or two to allow the oil to seep back down through the rings and into the crankcase where it belongs, and of course did a full wipe down to the motor, so I had a clean slate to work with. After that, I reinstalled the plugs into the spark plug wires and tested them, and I did have spark at both plugs, both wires, even though they were heavily fouled. The spark still looked pretty good, and since they're like $6 plugs a piece, I figured I'd wait till we were all done, till I'd burned all the oil out of the motor, or at least out of the top end, to go ahead and worry about that. And since I didn't have any spray or misting out of the spark plug holes when I turned it over, I went ahead and reinstalled the spark plugs and threw a bit of oil down in the crankcase, and fired it up on ether, or a good old Valvoline starting fluid. Good stuff, about $3 a can, totally worth the time. And even starting on ether, it purred like a kitten. Since I intend on rebuilding the lower end intake pump anyway, I wasn't too worried about it, and I'm not worried about the upper pump, because, well, to be honest, it takes about 30 seconds to burn it out, and I only ran it in 5-second bumps, so no big deal there. Unfortunately, we had more oil seeping out, and I think it was just vibrations from oil, finally working its way down. That had drained down into the housing, and it was in places it didn't belong, and there it is, seeping out near the bottom, which is to be more or less expected. And my next step for it is obviously going to be to hook a fuel line up to it and see if the carb will run. If of course it is clogged, like I am afraid it might be, I may have a carb rebuild on my hands, and that's going to be super duper fun. And then we'll have the lower pump rebuilt. I'll be doing that work, and then directly after that, we'll be doing little stuff like new plugs, fresh oil filter, which that is right down in there. I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but there's an oil filter down in there that I'll be putting a new one on, fresh oil, and new filter and filter housing, and of course I'll be having a shift lever custom made for it, probably CNC'd aluminum, and then we'll put it all back together, and I'll have a motor that is I would say more or less worth about maybe 1,500 to 2 grand. May keep it, may end up trying to trade it for some tools that I could use, possibly a metal lathe, something along those lines. I really could use a metal lathe. Who couldn't use a metal lathe, right? So that's what's up with this. And I guess maybe the whole purpose of me trying to put together this video is to talk about taking the time to take care of what you have. And a lot of people, they just don't take the time to take care of what they have, and then they end up not having things, and they have no money to replace what they've destroyed. And you know, if you take something like this to a mechanic and have them work on it, they're going to have to put a lot of time and effort into it, and they're going to charge you a lot of money. Marine mechanics these days, which I used to be one, they run you about $150 an hour. And just last night alone, you know, I had a screw that was just stripped out of the housing. I'll talk about right here, the screw head that held this piece right here where my finger is. This piece actually holds on the this side of the housing is one of the screws, and the head of it was just stripped. There was just it was a Phillips, but it was just no getting it out, and it was seized in there good. And so I ended up drilling off the screw head and to get the housing apart, and I did. And then once I had the housing apart, I was hoping that I'd have enough bolt there to work with to pull it out with a pair of pliers, but no luck. So I ended up having to get a little tiny drill bit out, and we're talking little drill bit, and drilling a hole and then using an easy out. You know, this process to take this little tiny screw out at a shop would have cost you $150. If the shop was nice to you, they might charge you, you know, less. They might charge you normal mechanics fees like $80 an hour or something along those lines. But you know, between you know, drilling out that hole, dicking around, spending a bunch of time trying to get it off with a normal screwdriver, and dicking around with it, and then drilling it out, and then drilling the hole and doing the easy out. I mean, I easily spent 45 minutes. That time adds up fast, and you'd think, well, 45 minutes, why'd it take you so long? Really, it happens fast. The time adds up quick, you know. And this would have cost somebody, you know, probably around $100 to have pulled out. You know, and people just don't take care of what they have. They don't appreciate what they have, and that's why we live in a society full of disposable merchandise now, because people don't take care of the things they have, and companies have figured out that you might as well not build things that are worth holding on to for generations, because, well, people don't take care of it anyway. As a result, I get to spend a bunch of time working on this thing because somebody else didn't bother to do normal maintenance or take their time screwing in a screw, or you know, change the oil, or even bother to store it properly. And that's just a shame. Honestly, it's a shame, because this is an expensive motor. Luckily, when I'm done with it, it'll purr like a kitten, like it's brand new. But for the time being, it's looking rough. And you know, there you go. So anybody who's interested in working on 9.9s or working on outboard motors or learning how to work on outboard motors, well, you have an oil change, and you have a lower pump housing that'll be rebuilt here pretty soon, and possibly even a carburetor, and stay tuned for that. Yay.